Hello, everyone. Those who joined, welcome. So we're going to start and hope that more people will join. Just briefly, this is Yasmin Fatima, the founder of Foundation for Equal Citizenship, which is hosting this webinar today. We've been working mostly in the areas of youth and women's empowerment, and currently working in Trilokpuri. We started in 2015, and we've grown into different areas since then, mainly post-COVID, because of the needs of the community that we work in, that we started also doing some income generation programs with daily wages, and we have broadened our work with women and are hoping to also work on some skill and income generation programs with them. With that, why are we here today? FFEC has been working quite a bit with youth, who have been involved in different protests over the last couple of years or so. And some are aspiring journalists, and Shoaib, who's been working with FFEC as a fellow for the last few months, gave some feedback about how most youth is kind of unaware of, what they can do to keep their cyberspace or digital identity kind of, as anonymous as they can, or secure themselves in terms of being, under surveillance, given the atmosphere globally, but also within India. And with that, we were thinking of doing a webinar just so that there's some basics that, you could all learn in terms of how to protect your digital identity so that you don't get, for any very trivial reasons or not so trivial reasons, just arrested or whatever, be flagged. And so with that, I was able to get contact of somebody who is very familiar and, has some expertise in this area. He's been, working, researching, Saurabh Gupta, who's doing his PhD from IIT, and has, some expertise, quite a bit, I would say, on this particular topic. But we're, based on the feedback that Shoaib gave us, what we decided was we'll, start with some very basic tools that Saurabh can make you all familiar with, and then let it be. I'll let Saurabh kind of manage the meeting, but whether it needs to be very interactive, if there are questions, how Saurabh would like to handle. If you want some, to go to a more advanced level, you can kind of be open to what you want to get out of this. But the idea is to make you all aware of some tools that you should be, trying to use so that you can protect yourselves. So with that, I'll let Saurabh introduce himself and walk you through some of his tips. So Saurabh.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So as she mentioned, I'm a PhD student working on de-anonymizing, preserving and democratizing data privacy and ownership. So anonymity and data privacy is like the tools that I use to drive my research. Can you, I'm not able to share my screen. Can you enable that option for me so that I can share my slides? So I've prepared a deck of slides that includes a lot of tools that you can use, a lot of examples where, and I was told that this session would be focused towards journalists. So I have compiled these tools into 4 levels of privacy and anonymity. So it's up to you what tool you want to use, what level of anonymity and privacy do you want, and based on that you can just use these tools, right? And I've tried to keep this session more towards the basic tools, because advanced tools are not something that are made for general people. You have to have some idea of coding and computer science to be able to use those tools. So I mostly talk about tools that any random user can start using from day one without having any issues. It's a there are tools that are simply downloadable and installable, and you or either they are available as a web app, so you can always use it whenever you want. Okay, so I'll share my screen and then we can start. All right. So before that, can you guys put in the chat what background do you guys have in general, so I know what my audience is, what kind of audience I have in the call. So I hope you can see my screen right now. Can somebody respond?
I can see.
Okay, so do you see these slides? The slides?
Yeah.
Okay, and
maybe you can make it. Yeah.
So do you see the slides in full screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start. So before starting, I'd like to put this disclaimer for everyone. So any information provided in the following slides are meant for educational purposes. I'm not making any product recommendations or or asking you to boycott anything. I'm not endorsing anything. So this is just for learning purposes, and you should make your own choices on deciding what you should use and what you should not use. The opinions that I've posted in these slides are mine, and yeah, let's start. So I'll show you first of all, I'll show you some examples of data breaches in history, and then we'll talk about how we can prevent these things and how things go. So Life 360, this is an application that was used in the US by the families to track their loved ones. So it's like if you have a family of 4, everybody has these apps, and then this app used to track using location data, track locations of everyone, their well-being and everything. Can somebody else take this control to admit people into the call? Otherwise, it'll keep me distracting every time.
I'm admitting them.
Okay. Yeah. So it was found that the Live 360 application was actually selling this data to data brokers. And then there was a paper that was published in Nature Communications. This is a very good journal, and it said that knowing just 15 attributes of a population can almost identify the whole American population. And these attributes include the gender, the gender, the age, the zip code of a person where they live. And using these pseudo anonymous attributes, they are able to identify almost 100% of the population. And that's pretty shocking, because without any address, without any PII, they were able to track down each of these users. And then there's an organization called American Online Logs. They released a data set. They made a data set anonymous and released it publicly. But researchers were able to correctly identify a person from that anonymous data set just by looking at logs queries that looks like num finger 60 single man and dog that urinates on everything. So using this anonymous data, they were able to de-identify this woman. Then there is this application called Two-Word Data, and if you just visit this website without even logging in on an incognito mode, they will successfully identify your email ID and will send you an email. That is how broken privacy and anonymity is in today's time. That even if you visit a website without even having logged into those things, just by grabbing attributes from your IP address, like your location and something, they are able to identify your exact email address, and that's pretty shocking. Then there are other examples where people have cross-linked data sets from different data sources. For example, in this case, so usually what happens in the US is a lot of patients detail are posted in newspaper, so people would get to know what kind of treatment is being given for what diseases. And then there are some anonymized health records that are being released, and by cross-linking that, researchers were able to identify a huge number of people. So the crux of the story is, even when you anonymize your data set, and if you don't know what anonymization is, it will come later in the slide, so just hang on for a while and I'll explain what anonymity is. Even when your data, a company or an organization says that your data is safe, it's not really safe. That is the point that I'm trying to make with these examples. So now, before jumping into tools that could help us get private, get secure, get anonymous, there's a huge gap between using these tools versus them existing. And that gap is because they are not convenient to use. Right now, if you give everything away, it's the apps are pretty easy to use. So for example, there are a lot of applications that just ask you for tens of 20s of permissions, and if you just do allow, which is what usually people do in general, if you just allow every permission to that application, you will just get in and get to the actual application in a very short time. But if you carefully scrutinize each of those permissions and you choose whether to give them your location permission, whether to give them your camera access, and so on, it will be a hassle. So your usability will be less, and it will create an inconvenience for you. So to use these tools correctly, you will be facing some inconvenience. So these are security and convenience. They are inversely proportional. The more you have security, the less convenient it is, and vice versa is true as well. And you are only as strong as your weakest link, right? And the same is true for security solutions. So in this case, you can see you can have any password you want, but and this dog is trying to predict the password, but the password is visible from far away. So this is a weak link, and anybody can identify your password. So that's why we say that you're only as strong as your weakest thing. So it's not like you can focus on 2 or 3 things, make them strong, and then leave the other things behind. You have to do a comprehensive protection of your privacy, of your anonymity, in order to stay private from the online world. So the agenda is, I'm going to most of the part, I'm going to talk about the basic things like passwords, multi-factor authentication, digital footprint, virtual private networks, encrypted email, storage, browsers, and so on. I'll give some idea about moderate techniques to stay private and anonymous, and I have just a few slides for advanced, for people who want advanced level of privacy and anonymity. And then I have segregated another chunk of tools that can be used by ghosts. Ghosts are the people who want to be completely invisible from the online world. So let's begin with basic privacy. So basic privacy usually is all about using strong passwords, avoiding browser and OS-based password managers, reusing the same password on several sites. So if you are doing if you're reusing your password and your one single password is breached, then the credentials to a lot of services will be breached. So it is advisable that you use multiple passwords. It is also advisable to not use your browser and OS-based password managers, and it is because they could have been coded in a way that your data is still being breached. Instead of that, you use cloud-based or other third-party passwords, and I'll be making recommendations of whatever tools I'm suggesting. So yeah, one breach can lead to a breach of many accounts with the same credentials, so you should try to avoid these things. So the solution to this is to use a password manager like Bitwarden or KeePassXE. So they not only they save your password and give you access to it in a single click without remembering them, they also allow you to generate passwords that are harder to copy, right? They allow you to generate complex password of 16 and 20 letters of length. And it's pretty secure, so you should try and use these things instead of using default passwords or repetitive passwords for different applications. You should use fake answers to your security questions. You should have an alter ego in mind. So for example, if you in your childhood, if you went to Kendriya Vidyalaya, you should try to answer it in a different way. You say that I went to a DPS or a Kendriya Vidyalaya, because these security questions, if revealed, they can actually in a very similar way, the anonymous data was cross-linked. Your answers, if released, can actually lead to a loss of privacy. And you should have strong device passwords. So an idea to this is to think passphrases instead of passwords. So usually when we talk about passwords, we say we usually have a single word in that, and we just leave it at that. But we should ideally think about passphrases to use as a password, because they are more secure, they are longer, and they are easier to remember. Even Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, MIT, also suggests, they have like a policy that suggests that you should have a strong password. It should be at least 8 letters of length. It should have a capital letter, a small letter, a number, and special symbols, and all those things. So if you want a comprehensive look on the password policy, you can just open this URL. I'm not going to do that in this talk. It'll take more time, but yeah, more or less it explains how your password should look like. So you can have a look at it later as well. So as Edward Snowden mentioned, Margaret Thatcher is 110% sexy is a very good password. So a quick hand raise of people who know who Edward Snowden is. Like, do you guys know who Edward Snowden is? Okay, nobody is interested, I guess. It's Saturday night. Hello, am I even audible?
Yeah.
Okay,
Does everybody know who Edward Snowden is? Or you want, maybe Saurabh, you can just briefly mention who he is.
Okay, so he's a whistleblower who actually revealed a lot of tapping and privacy breaches which are done by the US government, and he has to fly away from the country just because of that. So he's a big whistleblower, and I think he stays in Russia right now, Russia or somewhere. But yeah, so I'll continue. So beyond passwords, what can be used to authenticate you? So passwords are not enough. Nowadays, you need more things to authenticate yourself. So for example, what are the other things that define you, rather than just a phrase that you remember? So it can be what you have. So for example, you could have badges, you could have smart cards, you could have IoT devices that can help you authenticate you, and you could have USB keys that can generate a timer based OTP all the time, and can be a unique identifier for you. Then it could be what you are, and fingerprints, facial recognition, retinal characteristics are such examples. And then it could be where you are. So you could be in front of a terminal, only then you could be authenticated, or it could be a service that uses a location based authentication. So I know there's a e-wallet called MeTeller, which is an international wallet for cross-border transactions, and they use a location based authentication service. So for example, if I'm saying in my account that I live in New Delhi, and if I'm not around a certain radius from that location, it is not going to let me do the transactions. And I faced a lot of problems with that as well, because I was at that situation, but the location data was not perfect. So we are still far away from having location-based authentication being commonplace, but it is along the way, and you'll see it everywhere soon. So then this question that popped my mind, like, can the police force you to unlock your device? And this is, I'm talking about what happens in India. I got an answer on Quora, and that's why I took the complete screenshot. So consider it just an opinion, not an exact or a true statement. Or maybe if there's if you know some lawyer, or if there's a lawyer in the call, you can confirm whether it's it says what whether what it says is true or not. So it says that in sections, according to section 165 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, police can ask you to unlock your device. So in that case, just to protect yourself, remember this: disable biometric authentication. So in case they are not able to force you by threatening you in some way, they should not be able to do it by picking up your hand and doing it in a non-consensual way. So and whenever you find yourself in situations in high risk areas like airport or protests or other places with heavy law enforcement, you should turn off your device. It requires the pin or the pattern to open for the first time when it is turned on. And you can try it out with your Android device, you can try it out with your iOS devices, and you will see that when it is turned off and when you switch it on, it requires you to enter the pin or the pattern, and it doesn't work with the fingerprint itself. Then comes the multi-factor authentication. So right now we have established that having a passphrase is not enough. So you should have an extension of your password, right? And multi-factor authentication is one such way. So you must have realized and seen it everywhere, even with Swiggy and all. You have a mobile device and you enter an email and a password, you get an OTP, and then you enter that OTP, only then you get into the application. So that is multi-factor authentication, right? You are entering a password, and along with that, you have a mobile phone that receives a code, and you use that code as another factor, and only then you can access the device. There are other ways to multi-factor authentication as well, but the most common place in India, at least, is the OTP-based SMS. So I've just put an example of that. And then, of course, you must have seen applications like Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator. So mostly big organizations use this to protect their infrastructure. There's also an application called Twilio Auth, which could be used with other applications as well that do not by default support authentication. But yeah, these applications can also act like another factor of authentication that you can use. So among these slides, I put some of the slides where I put these pledges, and I want everyone to take this pledge. I actually wanted it to be more interactive, but since none of you are reacting or responding, so I'm just going to continue with that. So I just want everyone to pledge to enable multi-factor authentication wherever available. If you see that there is an option to enable multi-factor authentication, you just do it, right? It will give you more security, more privacy. So, and then there's of course a question like, what's better, string password or a multi-factor authentication? So no, there's no doubt about it. Since there are multiple things involved in a multi-factor authentication, it is definitely better than a complex password. Even when your complex password is complex enough, even then a multi-factor authentication is good because it involves a lot of variables into itself, rather than just guessing a single password. And there are tools like John the Ripper and other hacking tools that could guess your password in less than a day or two, no matter how complex it is. And as soon as the quantum computers come into picture, all the current crypto systems will anyway fail. So we need methods like multi-factor authentication to keep ourselves secure. Then comes a digital footprint. So anything we do online, any search, any transaction, any online activity, it creates a signature, which is called a digital footprint. And if you do things unique enough, you will have a unique digital footprint. So for example, today I searched a lot of stuff about privacy, anonymity, a lot of examples of data breaches. So it created a digital footprint for me. And if someone looks for for someone who searched for these things in the New Delhi area, they might find that my footprint is like pretty unique and high, and they could uniquely identify me as the person who's doing these searches. So digital footprint is very important, and you should always take care of it. You should try to make it common enough so you are not uniquely identifiable among the crowd. Nobody should be able to pick you apart from a crowd of people, and that's the idea of privacy and anonymity, right? So this is again the link. I'll share the slides later. You can open this link, see what activities what kind of activities of yours are tracked in the Google system, and you can then review and disable it based on your application. So for example, some people use Google Fit, some doesn't, some people use Google Maps, some doesn't. So in that way you can just cherry pick what services you want and only give access to that. Always try to give the give as minimum as possible to data to these companies, right? Because you don't know what is happening in the background. Google is a culprit of this thing. There are a lot of use cases, and I've put a slide as well in somewhere later where I show you how many times Google has been fined and penalized for releasing user information. Yeah. So again, there's another pledge that you should open every unnecessary email that you have in your inbox that you have avoided since the dawn of time, and you should click on the subscribe button. And if you're using a service temporarily, you should always use fake information. Just you know, a random fake name for yourself. Create a fake name, a fake address, and you should use that for temporary services. For a more general services like getting admitted to a college or something, you should definitely use your original information, but you should always keep an alter ego maintained along the way. So that for temporary services you can just use that, and it will give you a sense of anonymity and privacy at the same time. Yeah. And you can instead of just I would the recommended way to do it is to open your inbox and do it one by one. The other way to do it is to open applications like leave me alone.app or unroll me or just delete me. What they do is they list all the services, all the I would say all the unnecessary services that are sending you emails, and you can just click on unsubscribe in a single place and everything will be gone. But the caveat to this thing is that they will have your email address. So it's like they are another service that are asking you for your email address to do those things. So they will have your email data. That is the only caveat, but you can definitely use it. It will save you time. But again, what I said earlier, convenience, it's up to you. If you choose convenience, you can use these apps. If you choose anonymity and privacy, you should go this way. And this is, in my opinion, is the right way to go. Then comes to social media. So everyone among us are using social media. Some like people are, excuse me, I'll just take a 1 minute break. Yeah, I'm back, sorry. So everybody is using social media. You should try to utilize privacy settings. You should not try to add strangers or send requests to strangers. You should avoid posting publicly, and this is all goes back to maintaining your anonymity and privacy. Now, some of you could say that I want to use social media, I want to post my events, whatever is happening in my life, but then you truly do not really want to be anonymous and private, right? If you're willing to post it. So these are just suggestions to keep you anonymous and private, and that is what I'm here to do today. So you should avoid public posts. You should do not hand over any personal information that apps do not need, right? Facebook doesn't need your home address to work. So why are you putting your home address in the blog that is optional? Similarly, Snapchat doesn't need your location to work. But if you open this link, map.snapchat.com, you will see a heat map where a lot of people have posted snaps, and you can just look at what is happening around, say, Hajj Khas in Delhi, or what is happening around Kashmir. And you'll be able to see the snaps of people who are posting at those locations. And this is again a privacy breach. Why? Because if you look at Google Earth's satellite view, street view, you will see that they have anonymized people's faces, they have anonymized vehicle numbers, but Snapchat doesn't really do that. So that is, you are not only jeopardizing your anonymity and privacy, you are also putting others in danger by posting it publicly on Snapchat. And that's a pretty big, huge statement to make, but it's all true. You can just look at the link and you'll see. So this is one of the works that we did. Actually, we started with Twitter. We collected data around elections, and we were able to correctly identify a huge number of users. We were able to get their house number, their husband's name, their age, their gender, their voter ID, and everything. So these are two data sets. One is from Twitter, one is from electoral rolls, which are publicly available on Elections Commission's website. And we were able to successfully link these users together. So you can see on the left, I've redacted the personal information for privacy reasons. But so basically, a generic thread in this case could be like someone has posted that they support party A, B, or C, and the other party people could go to their house and attack them or target them in some way, right? And this is a pretty big, huge. So you should try to avoid posting on social media as much as you can. Then this is another thing that I found. This is my Twitter handle that we found out. The security of systems in India is a joke. So this is a website from Delhi Traffic Police, which actually lets you enter RC, which is like your registration number for your vehicle, and they were revealing the mobile number of users directly. I have contact numbers of around 100 or 200 users just by randomly entering RC numbers on their website. And what could happen, why revealing this thing and protecting this number is important. I could simply call them and say you are challaned at Chandni Chowk for so and so reason, and now I'm sending you a link and you have to pay. So people could actually run a scam around these things and rob people of their money, right? So, and that is why protecting all of these things is important, and just revealing their mobile numbers like that is a pretty big privacy leak. And then there are other examples where a man from Arizona, they went for a vacation and they tweeted about it, and when they came back, they saw that their home was actually there was theft happened and their home was burgled just because they were posting everything on Twitter. So it's like you leave Delhi to say to go to Goa, and you post that I'm in Goa and with my family and everyone, and somebody who knows your address knows that you are in Goa, and they could come and they could break stuff at your house and do harmful things. In a very similar way, we know, and they could know your address by one of these ways that I've already shown you. I hope everyone is following to this point. Can you guys react like +1 if you're following? If you have any questions, just ask.
Yeah, I mean, the objective of this webinar was for people to be able to, I mean, get some tips, but also, if you have questions, please do ask, because that's why we've gathered together today. So just to kind of like maybe take a break and just get some feedback. Like, everybody's really quiet. Is this helpful so far, or are there some things that you were expecting that have not been covered so far? Anybody has any feedback, you can put in chat or raise your hand.
So I have a lot of tips that will come after this thing. I'm just trying to motivate you on how anonymity and privacy is important. So, but yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can ask. This is a good time.
No, nobody has any. Is everybody at least listening or watching? Wow.
Yeah, okay, I'll just continue, and let's just continue and wrap it up. I don't think people are interested in these things. So yeah, okay. So here's another example. Government is trying to regulate social media by introducing a position called a social media officer in each of these big companies, and having this regulation kind of goes against the law of freedom of expression. So these things are pretty bad that are happening right now in current scenario, and we should be able to we should be at least vigilant about protecting ourselves, because anything could happen, and anything did happen with a lot of people. So I have other examples for that as well. So let me come to that. So now let's come to virtual private network. So a virtual private network allows us to have an encrypted connection over the internet from a device to a network. So it basically protects your IP address. It ensures that the packets and everything, they go to the destination or the attackers from a different location, so that they don't know where you are sitting exactly. And so there is this website called What's My IP. If you can just type it on Google, you'll be able to see your public IP, and your public IP kind of reveals your location, your personal interests, your organizational affiliations, and a lot of personal information. So protecting your IP address is as equally important as protecting your sensitive PII information. And there was this incident where, hello, yeah.
Yeah. So are you going to be giving examples of VPN that are, I don't know if there
Yeah.
any things or,
yeah, I have yeah. So I'm basically talking about what the technology is, and then I'll give some recommendations of that as well. So this event happened in Hong Kong during the Hong Kong protests. If anybody remembers, the police arrested protesters running Telegram groups using their IP addresses. So they were able to identify the location of the protester just by looking at their IP address by some way. So that is why protecting your IP address is also really important. And these are just some recommendations of VPN. You can use Proton VPN, Mul, VAD, IVPN, Windscribe, Surfshark. But the best thing is the Tor browser. You can just download the Tor browser and using it. It gives you the maximum amount of anonymity. And I'm not going to talk about the technology behind Tor, but I'm just going to give you the application. And then comes to secure communications. You should stop sending sensitive information over SMS. Your SMS is not encrypted. So no passwords, no sensitive information, no details, no addresses should be sent via passwords. You should use tools that are end-to-end encrypted. And luckily, we have WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and so on. These tools, they are end-to-end encrypted, and you should try sending sensitive information through these channels rather than your SMS. This is a website where you can find privacy tools. So you can just go and look at different tools that you could use for different things. Then for encrypted emails, you can use Proton Mail, Tota Nota. As a journalist, it is very important to protect your source at all costs. So adoption of encrypted email is a must for you. I'm not sure whether there are even journalists in the call, but yeah, at least since it was focused towards journalists, you should always try to use encrypted email while communicating with your source, so that they are protected at all times. And you can use Proton Mail and these tools for that. Now comes to browsers. You should always use only trusted extensions that are created by companies like Firefox or Apple or Google, the companies that you trust, the brands that you trust, right? You should use privacy search engines like DuckDuckGo, startpage.com, or CRX. So CRX is an open source tool that gives you an interface to make searches, and it aggregates searches from 70 different search services. There are some technical steps to set it up, so I would just say you just use DuckDuckGo and make it a habit. You should always clear cache and cookie data from time to time. So the ideal time for this should be 15 days, but even if you do it in every 90 days would be good enough. You should always try to clear the cache and cookies from your browser every time, like every 15 days or 90 days when you use it. Have basic privacy settings enabled on your browser. So for example, you can stop the trackers on your browser. You can install some extensions that stop the advertisements that you see on your browser. Then comes to smartphone. So this is a report that suggested that Google actually shares your location even when you turn it off. So it's like through your smartphone, you're not anonymous and private, no matter what your choices are, because they are anyway going to share your data. Even when you turn it off, it's not completely off. And then everybody heard of this event where this Pegasus spyware was installed in journalists' phones and politicians, and they were able to extract recordings, call recordings, and call logs from these people. And this was a very, I think this was the eye opener event that actually allowed people to start think about privacy and anonymity in a serious way. So how can you secure your smartphones? You should disable all analytics from your phone. You should check permissions on each app and make sure you are giving away the least privileges possible required to run the app. You should avoid radios when not in use. Cellular, Wi-Fi, NFCs, Bluetooth, GPS, you should try and turn it off when you are not using it. You should use a VPN on your mobile phone and keep automatic system updates turned on, because this whatever company's mobile phone you are using, they keep sending you security patches, and you should always try to keep your system updated at all times. And then there is this example of SlicePay. I installed it and I thought I'll order a credit card from SlicePay, but it was asking me for my contacts and my location. And when I denied these permissions, it didn't even allowed me to create an account and use the application. And then a lot of people have reported that the SlicePay people, if you're not able to pay them back, they call your contacts and everyone, they show you they show you your call recordings and everything, that you have taken a loan, and then they abuse, and a lot of these things are happening online. So you should always, and this is why preventing and hardening your smartphone is important. This is the motivation. And then come to your computers, how you can secure your computers. So again, you should disable all analytics, check permissions on each app, and make sure you are giving away the least privileges. You should use a VPN, automatic systems updates on. You should remove bloatware, and in the best case scenario, you should try to use a Linux or a Unix based system. I have a few recommendations of what Linux distro you should ideally use in a later slide, so we'll look at it. And for storage, you should remove any temporary data that is being passively collected from you. And again, coming back to the browser cache, the temporary files, cookies, and so on, you should delete it whenever you get a chance. Make sure to permanently delete files from system. Just moving it to trash doesn't really delete it. So make sure that you are cleaning, emptying that bin so that your files are permanently deleted. And BleachBit is a tool which can help you to do that. So you can use this tool. And you should make regular backups for your data, so that even if a ransomware or something attacks your system, you have a backup of that data, so you will not get stuck in a situation where you are extorted for a lot of money just to get your data back. And this is another example which happened with a lot of ATMs that are there in our Indian ecosystem. They were running the Windows XP operating system, and the hackers were able to find a loophole, a vulnerability in that OS, and they collected all the data and then asked for a payment of $300 worth of Bitcoin just to give their data back. And again, this is another pledge. This is what I recommend. This is what I do on a daily basis. I keep all my data over cloud platforms like Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, and so on, instead of storing them locally. So even if my system gets stolen tomorrow, I'll not be in a bad state. I have everything stored over the cloud. Every important thing stored over the cloud. Even these slides I've created over Google Slides, so it automatically stores it for me. And even after 10 years, if I want it back, I'll be able to have it back. Each of these organizations have expert teams that work 24/7 towards protecting your data. So you should just trust them and use their services for storage. Is there any question so far? Okay. And while you are not on your system, you should avoid trying to use public computers. So this is another story of the guy who used to run the Silk Route website over the dark web. So this guy used to sell drugs and everything over dark web, but the feds, and this is an expert person who is a great hacker, and he was never caught. He was really good at what he did, but just because he used a computer in San Francisco Public Library, the federal agents were able to catch him. So if this guy, he just made a single mistake, right? He just used a public computer, which he could have avoided, and if he did that, he wouldn't have been caught. So you should try to avoid public computers, avoid smart trackers, avoid IoT devices. Again, the example of Life 360, they just sold your data to other applications. And then again, a lot of people must be using Fitbit. So Apple Fitness Tracker data exposed on unprotected database. So they are storing your name, birth date, weight, height, gender, and location. These are highly sensitive information for anyone, and they are just using it on storing it on an unprotected database, which anybody could access. So is there a question so far? No.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
So the Fitbit thing and all the helping that you mentioned, that they are storing data and all. So that is true, but even at this age, the people really need it. Some people do really need that thing. So how to escape from that? Like, is there anything that Apple can do, or it's like completely, it can't be, taken care of? The data would be breached. Is there any way that they are not doing it intentionally, or they couldn't do it?
Yeah. So I think there are things that you can control, and then there are things that you cannot control. So so I think in your question, you are relying on Apple to do things the right way, the ideal way. You are depending on
kind of, because the USP of Apple product is the privacy mainly.
Yeah. So actually, Apple does a very good job as compared to Windows in terms of protecting your privacy and anonymity. But still, since you are putting a trust into a third party, right? And that the trust can be broken at any point of time. So let me show you that slide really quickly. Yeah. So if you look at Wikipedia, just search for list of privacy concerns on Google, and you will see a large list of data breaches, problems, issues with sharing and using user data in an unethical way. There's a complete Wikipedia page for this thing. Like, you can imagine how many web violations a company like Google, who claims to be the torchbearer of technology, who claims to be a very good organization, a very ideal and ethical organization working towards humanity and everything. If they can do it, then anybody could do these breaches, right? So you should not ideally trust on these things. You should try to use open source alternatives. That is again another suggestion which will come in a later slide that I'm going to make. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, to an extent. I will add it at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Carry on.
Yeah, and then so these are moderate ways. They are going to make you more uncomfortable, more inconvenient. So be prepared for that. And of course, getting rid of Google from your life is pretty inconvenient. Like from the time you wake up till the time you sleep, you must be using Google services at least 20-30 times in a day. So it's pretty hard to get rid of that. Not easy, but inconvenient, but it is a necessity if you want to maintain anonymity. Then here's another idea. You should create your alter egos based on the task you are doing. So for example, you should have an alternate identity for online shopping. Suppose you are changing your name to something else. You have changed your address to something else, right? And similarly, you have another identity for YouTube searches, and then you have another identity for dating applications. So in that way, in that way, you could actually not allow these companies to cross-link and match your data to detect that this is a single person doing all these things. You can have multiple identities, and managing this is pretty easy. You don't have to do a lot of efforts in that. Just change a few things here and there, and you will be okay. And then you could use voice over IP instead of calling from your mobile phone. So instead of, this is an alternative of having a phone number. You can use Google Voice, Burner application, Hushed, or MySudo. All of these applications allow you to make calls, give you a number that is not your phone number. So they in a way keep your mobile number private. So suppose you are registering for an application that allows you to do online shopping. You could simply, use some of these applications to get your authentication done, and you never have to give your actual phone number to these services. The third thing is, of course, do not upload pictures of yourself, right? So there's a tool called Clearview AI, and they have built a facial recognition system that is so good that even if you have posted only a few pictures of yourself in your 6th standard, they will be able to identify you from the face. And they only sell to a lot of law enforcement agencies. So as a citizen, you should be really worried about this thing, because your privacy and anonymity is completely gone. And this company is being fined for a lot of money in almost all the countries that care about privacy and anonymity. So there are cases against this company in the UK, in the US. It's everywhere, right? They are very infamous for this tool that they have built. And this is not even that long ago. This is just 3 weeks ago. So instead of using social media apps, you use progressive web apps to create a home screen icon from the browser itself. So instead of installing the Instagram app or the Twitter app, which will have a more comprehensive permissions on your phone, they could steal more of your data. You should ideally just, so this is Facebook opened on my mobile phone. What I do is on my Chrome browser, I just open the settings and I click on add to home screen, and then I use Facebook from that. This way I can protect a lot of my information going back to the company through their mobile application. So so that is another suggestion. And these are a lot of subtle ways which you can incorporate in your day-to-day online browsing to have more anonymity, privacy, and control over your data. And then again, common mistake that a lot of people do, they use a single browser. So instead of that, you use different browsers. When you want to be completely anonymous, don't want to use personal accounts, use Tor. When you want personal privacy and security, and you are okay with customizations, use Firefox. Otherwise, you can just use Brave or Safari. They have out of the box privacy and security. And these are all the tools that are easily downloadable. You just have to Google for them, and you'll see. You can download it and start using it today after this call itself. And similarly for mobile browsers, you could use Tor for anonymity, Firefox Focus or DuckDuckGo for disposable searches, and then Bromide for personal privacy and security for Android. And for iOS, of course, you can just use Safari. And that is why I haven't put another alternative to that. And for every software you use, you should try to find a free and open source software alternative of that. So there is this website, alternative2.net. As you mentioned, right? You're using an Apple hardware, let's say. So you don't really have to use Apple software as well, because that way they're able to integrate it and collect your data seamlessly. You can replace whatever applications you're using that are given to you via Apple, and you can just try to find alternatives and use those applications. So again, they will be inconvenient, but they will give you more privacy and anonymity. And of course, Apple devices are more privacy friendly as compared to Android, as I mentioned. If you have a Galaxy phone, by the way, just throw it away. Samsung's probably selling your data, and this is in public domain. People know about it. So, I mean, if you're concerned about privacy and anonymity, then you should throw your Galaxy away. Just don't throw it away just because I'm saying it. If you're really if you really care about your privacy, then you should throw it away. So since being a journalist, a lot of times you have to share your data with other people for analysis, for proof, for evidence. So for that, I've added some of these techniques. Now these techniques are actually pretty technical and not for a general audience, but I'll still try to give you an idea of how things are happening. So suppose this is the original data that you receive, which has which looks something like this. By random shuffling, you could just change names somewhere, change mobile numbers somewhere, change addresses, and then you can mix and match the data, and you can then share this variant of the original data set with other people. And since it is shuffled, they will not be able to find the exact right person, right? And similarly, there is masking, where you just hide information from user size. So for example, in the zip codes, instead of giving them the full zip code, you remove some of this information. So 81 star star star. So this will tell me that 81, okay, I know that this person is in a city, but I don't know what exact street or what exact district or location they are in. I just have a general idea where they live, right? And then I'll quickly go through the advanced privacy techniques. You should try. I mean, this is really technical and not really for the audience that we have. But yeah, if you're a CS guy, you can understand a few of these things. You should have a BIOS password. You should have a full disk encryption, file encryption. You should spoof your MAC address. You should strip core OS tracking. You should use tools that can remove mask metadata from files. Use cable locks for physical device protection. You should not use any smart or IoT devices. Get a privacy screen. Cover cameras on your computers and webcams. So even Mark, yeah.
So when, like journalists often have to, like you said, share data. So so when you're sharing documents, is it, so one is, it seems like you should have some password, but how else can they secure the documents that they are sharing? Okay. Like if it's say a Word document, yeah, as an example.
Yeah. So if suppose they are sharing the document over email, so instead of using a simple email, they could use an encrypted email. They could encrypt their documents, right? So and there are out of the box encryption decryption tools available. You should ideally encrypt, generate a key, encrypt your documents, share it with the person or the organization to whom you want to share. You give them access to your public key, and they will be able to access it. And even if anyone gets a hand on those documents, that data in between, they will not be able to understand it because it will be encrypted and it will look like jargon to them. So encryption is one such way. Sharing data using encrypted emails is one such way.
Okay. And in terms of, these days people use a lot of these convenient apps, right? Like WhatsApp. Yeah. And I don't know if this is true or not, but a lot of people say that, Signal is safer to share information compared to WhatsApp. Do you know if that's true, or that's just I don't know, people just assume for some reasons?
So as far as I understand, there is no incident so far that proves that WhatsApp is actually leaking your data. But since it is linked to Facebook, and Facebook is already proven to be an evil organization, so people have an image of WhatsApp like that, and that is why they move to Signal. And I'm not sure about this because I don't use Signal, but I think Signal allows you to hide your phone numbers as well. WhatsApp doesn't do that. Okay. So I think that was also one of the reasons why people are more willing to use Signal rather than WhatsApp. But as far as we understand, there is no such incident reported so far. Both Signal and WhatsApp are end-to-end encrypted. So whatever you are sending, so suppose I send you a message and you send me a message, it is encrypted, and anybody who gets a hand on that in between will just see jargon from that data. They will not be able to make sense of it.
Yeah. And even Pegasus, for that matter, it's only I mean, firstly, that is a very expensive software, which apparently only like governments, usually are able to purchase. And even that case, it's not like WhatsApp data was just leaked in the cyberspace, right? It's only if that software was somehow installed, right, that you could get access to personal data.
Yeah. So when we talk about cybersecurity, there are vulnerabilities that are known, and then there are some vulnerabilities that are not known. So what they claimed is they use three non-zero, and the vulnerabilities that are not known are called non-zero vulnerabilities, right? So what they claimed is they found three non-zero day, non-zero day vulnerabilities, not non-zero day. So what they claimed is they found three zero-day vulnerabilities in WhatsApp, and they exploited those to install Pegasus into the mobile phones. And this is something. This is an event that doesn't happen every day. This is a very rare event, right?
Yeah, but I guess that really spooked people,
Yeah.
even though it's too expensive a software to just like, even for governments to just be randomly, trying to install it on people's phones, right? But nevertheless, I think that was also a factor besides Facebook's reputation and Mark Zuckerberg. It's also this particular, incident that really kind of like, made people sit up. Oh God, who knows? Everybody's listening to, not everybody, but the government maybe tracking everything on my phone, my WhatsApp.
Yeah, I think so. The same thing could happen to Signal as well. Is what the differentiating factor is there, right? Both of the apps work in a similar way. So there could be some zero-day vulnerabilities in Signal which are not exploited yet. But somebody could wake up tomorrow and say, I found this vulnerability in Signal, and they can exploit it. So the thing that happened with WhatsApp could also happen with Signal as well, right? Yeah, so I'll continue with the slides. So even Mark Zuckerberg is seen to be, covering the camera and taping the microphone of his device. So if a guy whose company runs on collecting users' data, he's doing that, why shouldn't you, right? And then comes the most extreme version of privacy and anonymity for the ghost. If you want to completely disappear from the world, from the online world, these things are for you. You should try some system hardening techniques, close open ports, use strict firewall rules. You should use browser hardening. You should use Tor for everything. Tor is like so Tor is called a onion router as well, because it in a VPN you just go to a single server and then it bounces you to the destination and back. But in Tor there are 3 layers of different systems that are in between your request going from your system to the server and then coming back. So Tor is really secure in those terms. It is slow for the same reasons, but it is secure. So inconvenient but secure. And then you can use DNS over HTTPS. This is basically when you transmit information through your browsers, whether it should be transmitted in plain text or in encrypted text. This is getting decided by this thing. Educate yourself about social engineering, link to Facebook phishing page. So there are recent messages that I received from 2 of my friends over Facebook, and when I opened those links, it was a website called facb00k.com. So that was of course a phishing page, and which looked exactly like Facebook. And if I would have entered my username and password, they would have my credentials and they could then exploit my Facebook account. I knew about these things, so I kept myself safe, but a lot of my friends fell for that. So you should educate yourself about social engineering. And if you, I'm not sure, but if you have seen Now You See Me, I think the second part or the first part, the magicians use social engineering to hack into the users, where they send money to the users' mobile phones, and that scene is pretty famous, and that is just social engineering and nothing else. you should use dumb phones, with no encryption, but no location tracking either, or do not have a phone at all. Of course, this is not possible, but again, these tips are for the ghosts. So use Linux distros like Tails OS, Unix, Cubes. Avoid facial recognition. Wear shades and sunglasses. Or I'll show you another example, and get rid of inbuilt cameras and microphones and use external ones. So this is a professor at NII Tokyo, Japan. I've worked with this lab for around 8 to 10 months. They have built these glasses that can, fool a facial recognition system. So these two guys, they are looking at a facial recognition system, and you can see that his face is detected fine, but his face is not getting detected. So they have built these glasses which are called privacy visor, and they just fool the facial recognition system. So if you're wearing those, you will never be caught in a facial recognition system. So you can use tools like this to avoid FRS. And then for data sharing for the ghosts, again, data sharing, since it's a complex concept, I don't want to go in depth with it, but I just added some keywords that you could look for if you're interested in these things. You could use techniques like K-anonymity, L-diversity, T-closeness, differential privacy, deep learning, generating synthetic private data set for sharing, to share your data. Again, these techniques reduce the utility of your data, but these are the most secure things that you could do to protect your sources. But I think in your context, in a journalism context, encryption is the best way to go. Then these are some research that I do on a daily basis. I'm involved in these things. So again, just to end with, I am Saurabh. My thesis is around these things. If you want to connect, you can send me a request on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. And if you like to support my research, consider buying me a coffee. Yeah. So stay anonymous, stay private. Thank you.
Thanks, Saurabh. I think it was very, very useful. I've learned a lot of new things, even though I work in the tech industry and I'm familiar with some of it. So once again, like, anybody has any questions? Was it useful? Like, can people just even raise their hands if they thought this was useful? Because that was the objective, to give, some overview of tools so that you can, protect yourselves. But were you able to get some new information or not? If, can you like... Yeah.
At least for the sake of my hard work, I have put like 4 to 5 hours to prepare these slides. At least just turn on your videos and ask something, or maybe just let me click a picture of everyone. If you can turn on your cameras for a while, it will be good. Yeah.
Hi, Saurabh. I just had one question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know your view on the recent intermediary guidelines and how it affects event signal when it comes to the government seeking data from anyone and anytime they want, because most of the companies have complied by the law by now.
Yeah. So I think the best way to go about is to not post anything that is sensitive for you, because ultimately they are looking at everything that you are posting. Or create an alternate ego. If you still want to use it, create a separate identity. If they ask you to do email verification or phone number verification, you can do using tools that I've mentioned in the slides. You create an alter ego to access your Twitter account, and whatever you want to express, you express it using that, so that your privacy and anonymity is maintained, and you don't end up in a bad situation just because you posted something. And pretty bad state of affairs, but it is what it is right now, and we should be vigilant about these things. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it certainly does. Thanks so much for such an informative session.
Thank you. If you guys can turn on the cameras for a while, I just want to take a picture, if you don't mind.
I wish I could. I'm currently sitting in a very public background. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I'll just make do with whatever I have. Yeah. say cheese.
Okay. Yes, people learned a lesson of like protecting their identity and not even showing their faces, maybe. That's one of the lessons learned.
Yeah.
But, yeah, maybe Shoaib, you can also take a picture. So we can also share maybe.
Yeah, I'll share these slides with you, and can you share the recording link with me?
Yeah, sure. I'll share that. And there's a quick poll since nobody is replying. I've just posted like very simple questions. At least maybe somebody can reply to that. Did you get the poll?
Yeah, I can see it.
You can see it, right? So at least if like people, can you just at least reply so we can
find it with us.
Yeah. And we will share this information. So for people who weren't able to join, I know some journalists were, I think, covering some reporting on the ground because of some, protests that happened yesterday. And that was not like, it was something unexpected that happened. And so I know some were kind of like busy with that today. But that's why I really thought this was very useful. And so Shoaib, since this was an initiative from you based on your interactions with people, what do you say? Is this what you were looking for in terms of what to cover? I just want to make sure, that we were able to make it useful. And if not, is there, a follow-up session that needs to be done or something? So since this was your idea, what are your thoughts? Shoaib?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
So I was just asking, since this was an initiative from you based on what interactions you have had with these young people, was this what you were looking for in terms of the content? Was Saurabh able to provide the information that you were looking for?
Yeah, sure. It was quite informative. What sort of shared the information, especially the privacy level that he divided, like basic, moderate, and advanced. That was quite informative. Even if someone wants to have a basic privacy, he or she can look at the basic thing and to that advanced level also. And all of the tools that he recommended are free to access. You don't have to pay any money for that. That was quite good. At this age, like it's very important today's time to know how privacy is going to affect and how is it important. I hope that it had helped everyone.
Yeah, I think it's also more than anything else, it's like a mindset. People need to understand, even though people are a bit scared about what's happening. And yet I myself have observed young people I'm interacting with in India who are journalists. I'm just surprised that they still continue to work the way they are working and are kind of like totally out there. And I think putting themselves at tremendous risk of, being arrested or whatever the consequences may be. And I think it's a lot to do with the mindset. And I feel like maybe, I don't know, it's changing now, but I feel the younger generation is so used to just being out there, right? On social media, that's kind of the way they interact also with these WhatsApp tools and all, to really like absorb this and think, yes, I do need to, secure myself and I should be taking these steps. It requires, I think, just like constantly being reminded that you should be doing that and changing the way you kind of, just like this is part of your daily life, really. And so I know you brought this up a few times. it's not easy because it's also convenient to just be out there. It's also like a lot of your presence on social media kind of validates, it's your alter, your ego, it's right. And also it's this a sense of isolation. And when you post things and you get feedback and you like it, but the more you're posting, the more you're kind of exposing yourself. And on the other hand, for some journalists, that's a very powerful way of kind of spreading the news also, right? Or what's going on and all that. So there are all these, I think, things that people are juggling with. And yet there are, I think steps that should be taken, some basic ones, which also I'm seeing like they don't follow. Like VPN was something, as an example, I suggested to some journalists. I don't think they're still using VPN.
Yeah, I think it's assuming it's rewarding and it's rewarding and convenient until it happens to you, and it is just a matter of time that it happens to people. And I'm really I'm very disappointed at that point that I'm not even sure that even a single journalist is there on the call. So it is just a matter of time, and we see news every day around these things. So they should get vigilant as soon as possible, and at least not for themselves, but for others who are their sources and everyone. They should be able to protect them, right? It's a very basic need of journalism.
Yeah. No, I agree, and maybe we can repeat this after some months, or let's see, we will share this with people. So even if somebody didn't join, they can, look at your presentation, they can learn, I think, like quite a lot. This was within, in 1 hour, it covered all the important, I think, basic tools that are not that complex to use. And like I said, it's really like something that people need to kind of really understand, given the situation they're in today. Okay, since, I think we don't really have questions. Many people have dropped out already also, so there's not much use of even looking at the survey, the poll results. But I think overall it was useful for everybody, and it was quite, I think, very clear and well presented for a general audience. And so I want to thank Saurabh, and I want to thank everybody who joined. Do check our website, ffecindia.org, and follow. I think many of you already do follow us on Instagram, and you can follow Saurabh as he, shared his information. And hope to see you again for some other webinar. Thanks, everyone. Good night. Thanks, Saurabh.
Thanks,
again.
Bye.
Yeah.
Have a nice weekend. Bye.
You too.